What's up, everybody? Today, I want to hone in on safety play in particular and talk a little bit about Cam Bynum. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You like that on 3, 1, 2, 3, you like it!
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, your pal in the kid you copied off in math class. My name is Luke Braun. You can find me on Twitter at Luke Braun NFL. You can find the show on Twitter at Locked On Vikings. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. If you want to win a Vikings jersey, I'm actually doing that. I'm doing a Viking jersey giveaway, not affiliated with Locked On at all, just something that I'm doing to help support a local rabbit charity that actually provides some services that we use for our buns that you see on YouTube all the time that get a lot of talk on this show. So if you would like to, you can find information about that in the description, doing a little jersey giveaway as a fundraiser. Any jersey you want, just keep it under $200 if you win the raffle. Today on the show, I want to talk about Cam Bynum. So one of the questions that came down a lot for yesterday's Twitter Tuesday was some version of, why is this defense so bad? What's wrong with this defense, right? And the answer to that question is plentiful. There's a list. But I wanted to talk about safety play in particular because I've been complaining a lot about like Cam Bynum playing too deep. And I think I've been at best overselling that and at worst just flat out wrong. I think the problem there is different and it's more of a footwork and technique thing. So I spent the last couple of days really boning up on fundamental basics of safety play. And I want to talk about those with you. And the thing about safeties is you can't see safeties on TV. And that means that we're just not as immersed in safety play as we are with other positions. You know, if you really wanted to, and if you're just one of those kind of Sunday viewers that watches the games, you're not somebody going and grinding a bunch of tape or engaging with any of that other stuff. If you just watch on Sundays and you wanted to say, pay attention to the left tackle, if you just want to, let me just watch Christian Darrisaw all day, you can do that, right? He's always in frame. With the safety, that's not necessarily the case. In fact, it's the case very often that the most pivotal parts of their play is just not in frame at all. So to really engage with this, you have to sort of, like the most unhealthy habit, and I catch myself doing this all the time, is to see a safety 2 steps away from having made a play and assuming that some mistake was made, that there was something that they did wrong or that they were late to the play or that they read it wrong or something like that. And we didn't see what happened off screen. We didn't see what their responsibility was. We didn't see what coverage they were in. And unless you can like pick that stuff out live, and I certainly can't, but if you can, if you coach DBs or whatever, power to you. But unless you can pick that stuff out live, we kind of have to discard whatever we thought on the live viewing, because for safeties, that live viewing, if we're just watching on TV, it's just going to be really bad. It's just going to be really misinformative. So before I get into Cam Bynum and the idea of depth, let me talk a little bit about the 2 main jobs that Cam Bynum will have in the bread and butter coverage of the Vikings, which is cover 6, or flip it around and it's cover 8, or quarter, half, whatever you want to call it. Cam Bynum will either be a half safety or he will be an inside quarter safety. That's most of his job. Now, he also will play single high safety if they're in versions of cover 1 or cover 3. I'm not going to go too in depth onto those because the Vikings haven't really called it nearly as much. And also that job sort of has different rules and stuff. So set that aside for another day. For now, let me talk to you about what to do as a half safety, what to do as a quarter safety. So half safety, the rules I want to focus on here are that your job as the half safety is to split the 1 and the 2 receiver. This is going to be really hard without visuals, by the way. This is a podcast, so visuals will be something that I'll have to say for Patreon, patreon.com/LukeBrownNFL. If you want if you're a visual learner, but if you're an auditory learner, this is the place for you. The number one receiver, the number two receiver, counted off outside in. So whoever's outermost is the one, who the next guy in is the two, right? Split between those two people. So wherever those guys are, you want to be right between them, and you want to get as much depth as possible in that half safety role. Now, they teach kids, like high schoolers, college kids, to get as much depth as possible. It's like how you are when you start out. And the really advanced, like super mega veteran galaxy brain play is to not get as much depth as possible and to stay a little shallower and closer to the play. But that's only if you feel like really, really good about what your read on the play is and your film study and all that stuff. And the reason I bring this up is because Harrison Smith doesn't get depth, as much depth when he is the half safety as Cam Bynum does. And that's something that only really the Harrison Smiths of the world can get away with. So that's not what I really want to ask Cam Bynum to do. It might be the only solution, but it would be a very aggressive play. And like to the point of probably an unreasonable thing to ask. But you get a lot of depth. You split the one and the two, right? And then if the one goes vertical and the two doesn't, let's say the two is running some kind of shallow cross and the one is running a clear out or its choice or something like that, then you play over the top of number one. And the thing about the half side of a quarter half coverage or just cover two is that you're the only deep guy on your side of the field and everybody else on your side of the field is an underneath coverage. And you will have the right amount of guys on your side of the field to cover however many receivers there are. If you're on the weak side and there's only two guys, you probably have two defenders underneath and then you as the deep safety, and it's 3/2. And then if there's three players on your side, it'll be 4/3. So you'll have three underneath guys for the three receivers, and then you're the deep safety. You're the extra guy. So you kind of play everything deep, and you have a guy underneath you on every single possible route. So you'll never have to play anything under, which means there's not really a punish for getting too much depth unless teams want to start finding the seams between the under and the shallow zones and the deep zones. You know, the hooks and curl flats and stuff, and then the deep zones. And NFL teams are a lot better at that, but they have to find that exact seam. And the real pressure point, the stress on this is, where does shallow end and deep begin? If it's a 9-yard pattern, who's responsible for that, right? And you're hoping you can find that gray area and exploit the confusion that causes as the offense. But as the defense, you just need to get depth. Part of it is being deep enough to cover possible vertical routes, right? And give yourself a head start against speedy burners and all that stuff you typically think of. We got to get deep because this thing's going long. But also it's just to be able to see the entire field because safeties do a lot of reading. And they have to see what's going on. So that's part of it. So, you know, if the one goes vertical and the two doesn't, then you're playing over the top of the one. And vice versa. If the two goes vertical, you're playing over the top of two. If both of them go vertical, you midpoint them and you get a ton of depth because that's probably just verticals and they're probably trying to put you in conflict. So you just get a ton of depth and hope that when the ball is thrown, that you can make a play on the ball. Now, if both routes go vertical to get that depth, and then both of them turn around and curl, this is a play the Vikings have used on like 3rd and longs, for example, and you're out of position and you can't break on the curl, that just is sort of a coverage beater. And every coverage loses to something, and you kind of go, okay, that's the thing our coverage loses to. We can't cover everything. But you'll be good against vertical concepts. You'll be good against a lot of route concepts there on that half side of the field, and you're protecting struggling players, right? If you've got a 4-string corner over there, for example, you can use that so that he only ever has to play underneath and influence stuff. And without getting too far into the weeds of half, that's what you have to know. And there's a lot of other variations depending on where the other defenders are playing and stuff, but I don't need to get that far into the weeds. Just know, split the one and the two, get deep. That's what we need to think about for now. In terms of quarters, you don't have as much safety net. You don't necessarily have that same advantage of there's always an extra player because there's two deep players, which means if it's say 4/3, so 4 defenders to 3 route runners, and you got 2 people deep, you're going to have 2 people underneath, and someone is going to be responsible for all of a route. You're not going to be able to have something where somebody plays shallow and I can play deep over everything and just watch the QB watch where the ball goes. Somebody's going to have to just be responsible for all of a route, and that's where it depends on what the coverage call is. You can say, okay, well, Patrick Peterson's over there. He's responsible for all of his guys' route, and now we have a normal 3-over-2 situation. He's going to be the guy deep. Or if you have Harrison Smith, you can say, well, he's just going to be responsible for all of this. Then there's poaching, where if you're that inside quarter safety and something's coming across the other side of the field, you might actually be responsible for that. So there's a lot of other stuff and other reading to do. We will get into now what Cam Bynum is doing wrong there, and why I think he's late to a bunch of plays. And I do think that there are things for him to be cleaning up, and then like why that is and what we can do about it. Sound good? First things first, though, let's talk about Turo. Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car that you want, wherever you want it, whenever you want it, from a community of local hosts. And you can browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion. They're operating in the US, UK, Canada, and Australia, and it can fit just about any budget. If you just need an economy car to get you from point A to point B, that works. Or if you're looking to splurge and test drive a new electric vehicle or some luxury car that you're maybe thinking about, you can do that as well. Or if you need a big old minivan for the family vacation that can fit the whole clan, then you can also get that. Many Turo hosts will even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. I also want to talk to you about a new podcast that is coming out on Audible. Well, they're actually releasing a whole slate of new football podcasts. The one I want to talk to you about is called Block Forever. It's from NFL All-Pro Ryan Khalil, who is going to try to give you more real and authentic conversations about NFL football as a pro himself and as somebody who's, been there, been around the block. He'll be able to talk to star players and former players and coaches and stuff about the sort of stuff, especially with the former guys, that they can't really get into when they're in the league because there's a whole politics game to play. But you can really get real about what happens in the team hotel or inside the locker room, behind the scenes, discussing topics like psyches and how players feel about sports betting, playing through pain, being a leader, all that cool stuff. New episodes of Block Forever will be recorded and released every week ahead of Thursday Night Football, and you can find it for free on Audible or wherever else you get your podcasts. Catch the full Block Forever series available, again, wherever you get your podcasts. Audible, get in the game. Thanks again for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today, talking about all things in the wide world of sports. I'm sure they'll have some thoughts on the other kind of football going on. USA advancing to the round of 16. Love to see it. So let's talk a little bit more about Bynum. So when Bynum is backpedaling a lot, and when you see him going super, super, super deep, think about what that coverage is. If he's the half safety, he has to do that. Unless you're Harrison Smith, unless you're Ed freaking Reed, Troy Polamalu, you're not going to be able to play that sort of completely insane, shallow thing. You have to get a ton of depth. And that's just like how the coverage works. If he doesn't get all that depth, like everybody else in your coverage is relying on you to get that depth. So where is it going wrong? I think it's in the transition. When you're backpedaling, and then you have to transition to, okay, now I saw where the play is and I'm going to break on it. And that transition from backpedal to forward running is where I think the problem is happening. And I think it's taking him too many steps to get his direction changed. And this can happen for a number of reasons. And we actually saw them all in the Patriots game. And I think two of the touchdowns, the one to Nelson Aguilar and then the one to at the beginning of the game and then the one to Hunter Henry where Cam Bynum missed that tackle. I think the problem started in that transitional footwork. So when you're backpedaling, when Bynum backpedals, his shoulders are a little bit more upright than what a lot of people will teach you, especially if you're in high school or a young kid trying to learn how to backpedal. They'll teach you, or especially if you're playing corner, if you watch corners do it, they will have their shoulders out in front of their toes. And when you backpedal, you want to be on the ball of your toes. When Bynum backpedals, his shoulders are more up over his hips and he's still on his toes, but his weight isn't as ready to like break on things. Now, he might be doing that on purpose so that he can get more depth with that backpedal. But if he wanted to adjust that and backpedal like a corner, he wouldn't get as much depth, but in some cases that's okay and in some cases it isn't. Pick your spots, right? He wouldn't get as much depth, but he would be able to break on things faster because when he's getting all that backward motion and when his balance is behind him, when it comes time to stop going backward and start going forward, it's that much more momentum that he has to fight, basically. And it's going to take him more steps to get turned around. There's a drill that safeties will do often that's like a fast to slow backpedal drill. And then you like break at wherever the coach tells you. You'll kind of see them. They'll have like a ball on a stick or just hold a ball and they kind of are going back and forth. There's like a weave drill that's like that for linebackers. But if you do that drill, it's you backpedal as fast as you can, and then you backpedal about half as fast as you can, and then go back up to full speed and back down to half speed, and you're just practicing that kind of changing of gears. And when you're backpedaling at full speed, like if you're a half safety, you got to get way deep. You have to, like, to get going the other way, you'll go to kind of full speed, half speed, and then plant your foot and drive. Because if you were going full speed and you try to plant your foot, you might lose your footing, or it's going to be a lot harder. That sort of agility and explosiveness is one of those natural athleticism things that's really rare that gets people drafted highly when they have it. But Bynum is going to do the, slow back pedal and kind of slow down responsibly and then get going. And that's all fine. That's a rehearsable, drillable technique. But when he is transitioning from that slow back pedal to the actual, like the plant foot and then drive off of it, sometimes there's an extra step that will take him a little wide or will just take him a little further back. And that's the step I want to kind of work out of there. I want him to decisively be able to say, okay, this is when I'm planting and I'm going. That extra little wasted motion really got him good on the Nelson Aguilar touchdown, where he was backpedaling and he was widening because where the play was, where the number one receiver was, he was a half safety, so he's got to split the 1 and the 2, right? Half safety splits the 1 and the 2. The 1 was going way outside, so the midpoint between the 1 and the 2 was going outside with that, and so he was widening to follow it, and then the ball gets thrown to the seam on his inside. So he's found himself with the wrong horizontal motion, which the play is designed to do to him. When it was time for him to open the gate and actually chase that thing down, because of where his balance was, his foot swings out way too wide, and then regaining his footing was difficult, and he actually slipped, lost his footing, lost a little bit of momentum, just a little bit, and then he was just a little bit late to the throw. And not only does he allow the catch, but he misses and slips off the tackle. And something very similar happened on the Hunter Henry make Cam Bynum miss touchdown, where he misread that, where he thought Hunter Henry was going all the way vertical instead of turning around. And so he actually opened the gate again, like he was going to start turning his hips and running straight downfield, but then that didn't turn out to be the case. So he kind of had to interrupt that motion, and he was halfway through it, and then his momentum was completely all borked, and he was cheating wide when he didn't have to, and he was so he was a little out of position, and then he had to get up to full acceleration. All of that means that he was basically slamming on the gas when he got to Hunter Henry instead of breaking down and making the tackle like you're supposed to. Not unlike, when you see like Dan Chisena and punt gunner fly by the guy, kind of the same issue. When you're going all gas and you're not breaking down, you're not able to make the tackle. Because of the problems that happened earlier in the play, Bynum wasn't able to break down. And so it's very easy to juke him when he's coming in like a missile like that. Hunter Henry jukes him, runs in for the touchdown. That is the footwork issue that happens. So now the answer becomes, okay, what do you do about that? And there are a few different solutions. I don't know if any of them are great. The real answer is wait, but we're in the middle of a playoff run. We don't exactly have the luxury of waiting. So there's a few different solutions I can pitch that are possible ways to kind of get Bynum to play this a little bit tighter, but the real answer is give him more experience at a position he's been playing for 2 years. So I'll get into those. But first, it is almost the new year. And if you have a new job coming in for the new year, then LinkedIn Jobs is the place to put it. And you can put your job on LinkedIn Jobs for free with the special link, linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. And even if you're not going to use that, which why wouldn't you? You should still just put your thing on LinkedIn Jobs. I mean, it's the biggest database in the world for these kinds of things. They have simple tools like screening questions, and it's just a huge social medium for people who are looking for work, for career-oriented people. They have all sorts of ways to help you narrow down that huge field, so you're not dealing with a ton of resumes and stuff. And you can get that candidate that is right for you and your team and your company's culture. That's what you are looking for. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus their leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find those qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That is linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So before I get into my solutions, I want you to think of one of your own. Leave it in the YouTube comments or tweet it at me at LukeBrownNFL or whatever. Or just, I don't know, keep it in your head. What would you do about this? Cam Bynum is having difficulty when he backpedals, transitioning into his break toward the ball, whether that's in front of him or whether that's transitioning wide or transitioning one way or the other, and it's putting him behind. What do you do about this, coach? As I record this, it is November 30th as this episode comes out. You're not exactly looking at a gigantic pool of willing free agent safeties, right? If they were any good, they're probably on a roster right now. So it's not like you're replacing the player. And I think a lot of people will go, well, Bynum's playing bad. Bench him for someone else. What about Metellus? Blah, blah, blah. You're not going to get Lewis Seen's shin to heal anymore, any faster. You're not going to get any of that stuff. It's Bynum. So how do we fix Bynum? Think about it. What's your solution? Take a moment. Vote now on your phones. Here are some that I would put forth. For one, having a dedicated time to drill that footwork, or just telling him to focus on it in practice is one way to do it. That's not the easiest thing to pull off because your week-to-week responsibilities vis-a-vis game plan and preparing for the next opponent kind of monopolize all the time. You don't exactly get a spare minute to work on fundamentals when you're an NFL player in the middle of a season. And it's why it's so hard for rookies who don't complete their development in camp to complete it in the middle of the season. There's your Andrew Booth answer, by the way, who knee surgery, he's going to be out for the year. But wherever you kind of leave off in camp, it's going to be really hard for you to get past that when you're preparing for a new team every week and you're now in the week-to-week grind. Look at what's happening in New York right now with the Jets, where Zach Wilson needs a reset and he needs to work on his fundamentals. And to do that, we have to basically have him eschew week-to-week preparation so he can work on those fundamentals. Like, he can't even engage with week-to-week stuff if he's going to work on his fundamentals, and now we have to start Mike White for a while in the meantime. That's where you're at, right? So it's not the best solution, but that would be one. If you can find a way to pull it off, if he can find the time to just drill this stuff, because this is something that gets solved with drills. And if Cam Bynum's going to post workout videos on Instagram in April, I hope that they are these drills. That would be a great thing for him to work on in the offseason. But in the immediate short term, another solution that's a little reckless is to have him play it like Harrison Smith plays it. Get less depth. You're going to have to read things very fast. It's going to put a lot more strain on the mental side of the game. And I think Bynum has a pretty good grasp on that stuff. And it's going to put less stress on the physical part of your game. It's another reason Harrison Smith is playing it so aggressively, is because he's getting up there, right? He does not exactly have the side-to-side athleticism that he had when he was a young kid. So he has to kind of cheat and give himself head starts and read and try to kind of guess the answers. You could have Bynum play it that way and say, hey, your transitions aren't that great. Don't do it. I think having him backpedal like a corner could be a less aggressive version of that solution where, okay, you're not going to get as much depth. That might hurt you in like a half safety and a cover two situation. But it also might give you the chance to sort of shorten up those gigantic windows over the middle of the field. Vikings are probably going to have to beat teams like Dallas and Philly and San Francisco if they actually want to turn this season into a championship season. All those teams love the middle of the field like nobody's business. So tighten up those seams by giving him a more controlled and conservative backpedal. The problem is it makes you a little bit more susceptible to getting beat over the top, and that sort of defeats the entire philosophical purpose of the Ed Donatel defense. So I don't see them doing that, but it would be like a more conservative thing, and it's probably the most realistic solution of the three that I have proposed so far. But I think, again, the best solution is the long-term one. That is just drill it. Just drill the absolute heck out of it. And I think you can even tell Bynum, hey, don't, issue your game plan practice and stuff. Make sure you're understanding the playbook and what we're working on. But I want you to be focusing on this when you do your dropbacks, when you do your drills and your warm-ups and your individuals and everything you do in practice. I want you to focus especially on the situation where your back pedal has to widen and then the throw is to the inside. And, being able to not only stop his backward momentum and go forward, but stop his outside momentum and go inside. That's what I want that's what I would ask Bynum to focus on. It's really little stuff. This is not an existential issue, and it's definitely, absolutely a product of a guy who played cornerback for his whole college career, got moved to safety last year, learned safety in one defense, and then in his second year of playing safety, he also has to learn a new defense. Puts him behind the eight ball, and honestly, I'm surprised there aren't more problems with that circumstance. So good on him for that. But if you want to know why there's so much space in the middle of the field, that is part of it. The linebackers have their share of the blame too, but that has to be a conversation for another day. Tomorrow is Crossover Thursday. We are going to be talking to Locked On Jets, John Butchko. Great dude. Excited to talk to him. And we are going to transition into talking about Mike White, I guess, and the Jets. God, the Jets are a fascinating team this year. They're so weird. So I'm excited to talk about that, and we'll get into bold predictions and all of that other stuff on Friday. But for now, there's your what's wrong with Cam Bynum answer. Hopefully I enlightened you a little bit. Hope I didn't lose you over all of that stuff deep in the weeds. I will see you all tomorrow. And as always, Skol.